Yeah, I miss the shit we did as kids. 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 Yeah, we grew up fast. Now we want the cash. Box that held my favorite Jordans turned into the stash. Way before I hit the first blunt, oh, that girl I smashed.
In this guy podcast, on today's episode, we have Sinatra, who is a up-and-coming rapper. Sinatra, for those people who don't know who you are, kind of give yourself a little bit of an introduction.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Sinatra from Harlem, New York. Just dropped a new EP, We Was Kids, produced by myself and Brass Tracks on all platforms. Been grinding and doing this music shit for a minute. Been doing shows, a lot of shows in New York, been on tour, been done all that. But, now it's time to sit down, talk to the homie In the Sky podcast, see what's going on.
Hey. So, you said you went on tour. Where all did you go? Is it just in New York or like all around?
Nah. So when I first started performing, Brass Tracks used to bring me out for their performances, and they had already been touring, and just organically we just kept performing together, kept working together basically because they produced like pretty much a bulk of my music. And then we started going all over the place, man. We've been all over the country. We've been to Canada. We've been to some islands, like places I'd never seen and I never thought I'd be at. But we made it there off the music grind. And we've been doing it for the past 3-4 years. So we've really been like summer festivals, Coachella. You know what I'm saying? Like we just did all that shit, and it was just a beautiful experience, like to be able to do that on that scale.
Now, was this tour recent?
Nah, the last time we went on tour, or the last time that I went on tour with them was, probably like last year. Because I already had the album done. So I was just mainly just performing and pushing the album. And then this year I kind of fell back because I wanted to work on more music and make sure I was right for my next push.
Okay. So let's take a couple steps back. You said you're from Harlem. What kind of upbringing did you have?
So I grew up in Harlem on 111th and 7th, and basically my uncle, he owned a couple buildings on the block, so all of my family came through, and I just grew up with a huge family, just outside every day, like a lot of homies, a lot of just running up and down. And then niggas started getting older, started listening to more music, started getting the fire lit in them that we could rap and shit. And I started rapping with my cousins way back in the day on these like shitty USB mics and all that. knew nothing about mixing, nothing about like recording. We was using, I forget what program. I think we was using like Audacity or some shit to record. And yeah, man, fast forward, I just kept at the shit, and here I am today.
So how old were you when you like kind of started that shit?
I want to say I started rapping when I was like 15 or 14, but I really started taking it serious like when I was like 21, 22, and I was like in college and starting to really get the vibe that like I wasn't really there for the classes, and my mind was just elsewhere. Like I was thinking about rhymes, thinking about songs in class, and at the end of the day, I just ain't want to waste my time, my parents' time, and their money. And then I just dropped out and just fully like pursued this shit, which was a struggle. It was a grind. I ain't gonna lie. Everybody not gonna be able to do it, but I stuck through it and made sure, I love this shit. So I just kept going because naturally I'm just inspired by music and all the shit that I do. So, I just kept at it. And around that time is when I started taking it seriously.
So who are some of your biggest inspirations, like as far as like other artists?
So starting from back in the day, I want to say the first album that I listened to that I understood how dope hip hop was, and I've heard albums before this, but that was the first one that like really like, I guess where I was coming up and what was happening around me, there were certain things I could relate to the album, but it was, Reasonable Doubt, Jay-Z. And he's like my favorite rapper, like ever. And then, I definitely listen to Nas, Big, and then new school cats like Cole, Kendrick, those people mainly are an inspiration for me. There's a lot of new cats out there too that I really fuck with, like Saba and there's a lot of people out there that I really fuck with, but those four are like the main. If I had to just summarize it and bring it down to like those sounds, those would probably be my inspirations.
A lot of New York rappers.
Huh?
I said a lot of New York rappers.
Yeah, except for Kendrick.
Yeah, not Kendrick.
And Cole kinda, but he grew up in New York, so.
All the old school ones were right.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I've never really been big on Jay-Z. I like Nas a lot though. I like their beef.
Yeah, man. I mean, that shit is epic.
Yeah.
That kind of defined like mainstream rap beef to a certain extent, because like, I mean, Jay-Z put Takeover as the second track on the album. Like, nobody's really doing that anymore. But at that time, it was just so gritty. It was just like, fuck it. I'm gonna kill you on my album that's going platinum. Fuck it.
A lot of people will just tune in to a song just to like hear the beef, I guess.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Nah, for real.
So, about your career.
Yeah.
Where are your aspirations? Where do you want to take it?
Shit, man. I want to take it to the top. I want to go as far as I can. I've been doing this shit for a while, and especially when I started producing like 2 years ago, that really gave me like another aspect to love about creating music. Because a lot of times, like, I was always into the musical side. Like, I was always asking my musician homies, like, what do you call this? Or what's this called? I was always that dude in the studio. Like, okay, let me try this, see what happens here if I tweak this 1 dB, or like, let's EQ this differently. So that was always like another motivation. But yeah, man, that I just kept going at it, kept going to the studio and kept looking at my idols as competition. I always definitely kept that in the back of my mind too. I was comparing my work, and not on some comparison like what am I missing, but like on some comparison like how can I do this better, or how can I be greater than these dudes.
So like a lot of people will talk about like how they just don't want to do something forever. Do you kind of believe that with yourself? Like, once your rap shit takes off and like, maybe you're in a good position with it, would you consider doing other things?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as far as I could see right now, like, music is the end all be all, but definitely I want to be able to, probably do some acting shit, probably get into like real business stuff, property, like just trying to create opportunities for the same people that was supporting me when I didn't have shit. And I know a lot of them was struggling to like even, come to a show or like all that stuff. So I want to be able to somehow use music as the segue to like do all this other dope shit that could really help people out. You know what I'm saying? And last just as long, hopefully, as my music does, even longer.
Hell yeah. It's good that you like go back to the people that were there for you when you were down, because a lot of people really don't do that.
Man, support as an independent artist, bro, support is like one of the biggest things, because I done seen a lot of my own niggas like give up on the shit because they just either didn't know how to attract the attention for the support, or at the end of the day just didn't have somebody to work with, like bounce ideas off. Like, I've always been lucky that ever since I started, like I always been around real musicians. Like I always been around rappers too, and I love rap, but I've always had that other side of love, like for the musical aspect of it. So I've always been blessed to have musical homies around me that just like really explain the game for me and like put me on to a lot of knowledge.
Okay, so speaking of like your peers and people around you, how is the rap scene in Harlem right now? How would you describe it?
It's real diverse. There's a lot of people stepping out of their shell naturally just because music has changed. Like the industry has changed so much in the past 5 years. Like what was popping back then really ain't popping now, like down to like what kind of snares niggas use. Like it's so different now. And I feel like that's inspiring a lot of people to try a lot of new shit and step out of the box and like really strive for something else, because the talent sometimes is there, but it's just the way to adapt to the times is not always there. So like now that there's a lot of music going on and like anybody could just stream anything at any time, it kind of like motivates you to step out of the box. So I think Harlem's in a good place right now. There's a lot of dope people out there. Shout out my boy Jay Prezi. He's one main person out there really killing the game, really doing his shit.
So would you say, is there any beef in Harlem, like, are any rappers really going at each other?
I mean, I wouldn't be able to tell you that. I'm real studio oriented. I don't really be on that side, but I mean, you know, it's beef everywhere you go.
Yeah, true.
You know, you just gotta know yourself and know where you fit in best. Like, I'm really not the type of nigga you're gonna see like at the club or like making all these, you know, perform. Like, I perform, but I don't really do like I said, like club shit, walkthroughs, all that stuff. Like, I'm really just mostly in the studio, just creating all the time. I go out and network and meet dope people all the time and work with a lot of other dope artists. But my main thing is always just really in the studio, just trying to craft the sound, trying to figure out, you know, the next shit or whatever it is that I'm about to be on.
So what would you say inspires a lot of the sounds you kind of create, and like just your lyrics and music in general? What kind of pushes you to put what you put?
I would say mostly just my everyday experiences. Cause like if you listen to my music, I just really just talk about like what I do. Like, bless you. I really just be talking about like, nah, you good. I really just talk about like regular experiences that happen to me all the time. And like, I've always kind of been like a natural like storyteller kind of. So that's something that's always been in my back pocket that I could, you know, I like making fun shit too, but the main motivation is just like what happens around me and like how people struggle and like different ways. You know, I always say that everybody goes through the same shit. It's just in a different place with different people at different times. Like, but the emotions is there. Like, everybody's angry. Everybody gets motivated. Everybody gets happy. Everybody gets like, you know, like struggle, like, you know. So it's like those main feelings. And I heard an old Jay-Z interview where he said like that's the difference between making music timeless and like making dated music. You know, it's some people talk about the wave and some people talk about shit that happens every day, and neither one is better than the other. Like, that's subjective. That's up to you. But for me, the one that brings it home is just like, you know, real everyday shit that everybody can relate to.
That's like true, because like just like scenarios, really different scenarios, like,
yeah, exactly.
But it's all still there. I like that. So what would you say your recording process is?
So I have the lab set up in my house, so I'm lucky to just be able to do this shit and just be here all the time and work. And I step out and go to other homeless studios and collab with them and shit. But my recording process, I'm literally just cut on the beat, or I'll probably like, it depends how I'm feeling. Like, I might make a beat and then record to it, or I might, you know, link up with my homie, Brass Tracks and cook something up from there. And then I'll like write lyrics to that, or, you know, it depends what vibe I'm on and like how I'm feeling. If I wake up and I go outside and I hear a sound or something, it might inspire me in the moment to go back and make a beat. Or if I see some shit going on, like, I might be inspired to like talk about a situation. So, yeah, that's really pretty much it.
Oh yeah. I don't think I asked you. How old are you?
32.
32.
Yeah.
So you've been at it for like 10 years?
Yeah. Like 10 plus, yeah, around there.
How long have you like been recording in your house and kind of making your own shit?
That happened about, so when I was with my old roommate, which was about maybe like 4 years ago, was the first time that I had the opportunity to set up the studio in the crib. But even at that point, I still really didn't know exactly what was going on. Like I was just starting to use Ableton. I had a mic, I had a filter, but that was about it. I didn't know anything about no mic guards. I didn't know about EQ or interfaces or any of that stuff. So that was like the first version of the studio. And then when we upgraded, I ended up getting way more equipment to help me out and make sure the shit was sounding right. I just kept linking up with people, kept asking questions, kept asking engineers questions, rappers, like everybody, until I found out the setup that worked for me.
Oh yeah. So how'd you get your name? What inspired that? Like Frank Sinatra?
Yeah, this is how that happened. My dad was in the military. He's from Dominican Republic. That's where my whole family is. That's where they're from. And he used to travel a lot, and he used to really just like collect records, like, cause he was traveling to like so many different places. He would just bring records home. And it's crazy cause my dad's like his English wasn't always there, but his ear was just like crazy. Like he used to really bring home like dope shit, you know, like Sam Cooke or fucking James Brown, you know, even older shit like the Whispers and like Stevie, like all that shit. But when we moved, a lot of the records got stolen. So when we used to live in the basement, and then we moved upstairs into the building. And at that time, a lot of the shit, like I said, a lot of the shit got stolen. And so that was one of the main things I was playing in the house, like even before I knew what music was. So that sound was kind of always there. And I remember I was 15 when I changed my name from like, it was like some shit like Young Rich or some dumb shit like that. And I changed it. No offense to any Young Riches out there. Y'all keep doing your thing. But I had to switch. It just kind of came naturally to me one day. Like I finished recording in my boy's crib, and I was like naming the song when I was about to save it. And I sat down and I kept thinking about it because that song was like one of the most lyrical joints I had done at the time. And I just felt like for some reason, like this really doesn't match what I'm talking about. And also I just kind of started feeling like disconnected from that name, like the more time went on. And then one day, like it really just popped into my head, like Sinatra, fuck it. And I was just like, fuck with that. And you know, that's how that happened pretty much. It was like an accident almost, but you know, a lot of dope shit be happening like that.
Yeah, true. Like the coolest shit, or like the shit that sticks the most, like just kind of happens at the most unexpected time.
Yeah, man, that shit was dope. I really felt like myself when I changed my rap name. And I'm glad I did that shit early too. I'm glad I didn't do it like after I really started figuring out what I wanted to do with music.
What was it before Young Rich?
Oh man. I don't even know if I had a name. I was probably the nigga that raps. I don't know what the fuck they used to call me. Like that was just like, I remember that being like the beginning of when I really started figuring music out. Like Young Rich, I was still having fun. I was like talking about shit that's going on the blog. And I had my introspective shit here and there, but I wasn't really like fully comfortable with it yet. And I was also young, so I really didn't know myself that well. So I was still trying to figure out myself. And that's also something that helps with the music, when you just really know who you are. And it's hard to figure that out, but I feel like I was lucky enough to be around people when I was coming up that just like really pushed like being yourself and being honest and all that shit. And that really just changed my whole perspective on the music shit.
Hell yeah. So before we wrap it up, are there any messages you want to give to anybody?
I really want to shout out everybody, every independent artist who's out there grinding. The shit takes fucking patience, and the shit takes vision, and the shit takes support. And all of them shits is free. Like, so it's really no, you know, it's no excuse to like stop doing it. I know real life shit happens and gets in the way. You just gotta, you know, make sure where you cut your corners and make sure that you know that what you're doing today is a little step to making you better tomorrow. And I also just want to shout out my moms, who just came through to the first show. The first time she seen me perform, didn't even tell me she was pulling up. And I just seen her in the corner, and it was the first time I rapped a bar about my mom's, and she was in the room and shit, and it just felt crazy. And I want to shout out my team, definitely. And shit, In the Sky podcast, man, for having me. Appreciate y'all.
Oh yeah, bro. It was dope getting to know you, bro. For sure.
Yeah, bro. Let's keep in touch. I'd love to send you some music and shit. See what I'm up to for the future.
Hell yeah, definitely. Thank you for listening to the In the Sky podcast, and thank you so much, Sinatra, for coming on, man. It's dope talking to you.
Appreciate you guys for having me, man. Anytime.